comes at you, doesn't seem to be living until he bites you. And those black eyes roll over white, and then you hear that terrible high-pitched screaming. The ocean turns red. In spite of all the pounding and the hollering, they all come in and they rip you to pieces.
Jaws is a classic for many reasons. Firstly, it's Steven Spielberg in his directorial prime. I'd say from 1971's Duel to 1984's Temple of Doom is peak Spielberg. He owned those years in Hollywood and left a permanent mark in American cinema that has never been seen before or since. And we see this with 1975's Jaws. It's a perfect film, every bit of it. The acting, pacing, suspense, character arcs, it's all perfect. But another reason why Jaws is a masterpiece in storytelling is because of one short but special scene that does more than just provide a thrill ride in horror and drama. Quint's speech about the USS Indianapolis gives us insight into his backstory, which explains why the shark has staked its claim off the coast of Amity.
Shark, swallow you whole. Shaking, tenderizing, down you go.
After the deaths of Chrissy Watkins and Alex Kittner, the Amity officials decided to gather at City Hall and discuss what to do about the shark problem the island has. This is when we first meet Quint.
You all know me. Know how I earn a living.
Unlike most characters in the film, Quint is just known by his last name. We have Chief Martin Brody and Matt Hooper as the other two leads, but Quint is just Quint. He has no other name. This was done purposely, of course, to show his limited personal relationship with the town. Quint is all anyone needs to call him by.
Thank you very much, Mr. Quint. Mr. Quint! Mr. Quint! Mr. Quint!
It's gotta be Quint.
This collection of colorful, isn't it?
It keeps him mysterious. We know nothing of his time on Amity Island other than he's a shark hunter and a person to be taken seriously. People listen when he speaks.
Mr. Mayor, Chief, ladies and gentlemen.
They don't interrupt him, dare he has an outburst.
Get up! Get back there! I bring the insurrection!
It's likely known throughout the island that Quint was on the USS Indianapolis, and of his disposition with sharks. The people of Amity respect him, sympathize with him, and likely fear him too. He's fully aware the shark at Amity is different than the rest. His speech at the town hall proves this, and he uses his experience as a seasoned shark hunter while exploiting that Amity will likely lose lots of money because of the shark problem, as a way for them to hire him to kill the shark.
You gotta make up your minds. You wanna stay alive and ante up? You want to play it cheap? Be on welfare the whole winter.
But, along with knowing that the presence of the great white at Amity is different, he also knows that the shark is specifically there to confront him. It's a showdown, and he knows this. The sharks from the USS Indianapolis are not done with Quint. They have a score to settle. When Brody and Mayor Vaughn hired Quint to kill the shark, Quint and Brody argue who holds sway over the quest.
Maybe I should go alone.
It's my party. It's my charter.
Yeah, it's your charter, it's your party. It's my vessel.
Quint suggests that maybe the hunt should be done by him alone. There's a reason for this. Sure, it will be easier for 3 men to track and kill the shark rather than just one, but Quint has ulterior motives. Quint has a personal vendetta against sharks, and while that's vaguely understandable because of his USS Indianapolis ordeal, it means so much more when we look at it from the subtextual message that Jaws applies.
I'll never put on a life jacket again.
We need to discuss how Quint plays his part in the story, other than his obvious relevance as a shark hunter. Surviving the horrible nightmare aboard the USS Indianapolis is Quint's major significance in the film. All it takes sometimes is a few lines of dialogue to apply a sliver of important information, and it opens the whole story up for a deeper interpretation. Quint's monologue aboard the Orca does exactly this. It puts everything in perspective and gives the reason for the shark's presence on a symbolic level.
He was coming back from the island of Tinian to Lady, just delivered the bomb, the Hiroshima bomb.
The shark and Quint connect with one another as symbolic parallels. They cannot exist without each other because together they tell a message. Rather than Quint being grateful for his life after surviving the sinking of the USS Indianapolis and moving on, he lives in the past and holds the sharks responsible. Quint dedicates his life to hunting down sharks as revenge for killing his crew and horribly frightening him while in the ocean. Being in a position where he was helpless against the shark attacks, basically waiting for his turn to die, was such a traumatic experience that it had the opposite effect on Quint. To quote one of the greatest physicists in human history, Sir Isaac Newton, "For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction." Of course, Newton applied this philosophy to his laws of motion, but in the broader context, it can be applied to many things we experience in our daily lives, karma being the most obvious. It's not by accident that the ship delivering the atomic bomb that was to be used to decimate a Japanese city was quickly held responsible by the Japanese Navy. If I'm aware of the possibility of karma in that situation, then so are many others. Perhaps that's even why some of the crewmen killed themselves while floating in the Pacific. Maybe it was out of hopelessness for this situation, and maybe it was guilt. Because of his random survival that day, Quint now has a death wish. He suggests going alone to Brody because he knows that his quest to find the shark likely ends with him dying in the process, and he doesn't want to endanger the others, although he will if they're naive enough to put themselves in harm's way aboard his ship. In a way, Quint wants this to be a kamikaze mission, like some of the Japanese pilots who attacked Pearl Harbor. You can see this by how he treats communication with outside parties while aboard the Orca. When the shark first shows itself to Brody, he gets scared to death, suggesting they inquire about getting a bigger boat.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
After the crew and the shark have their first battle, Brody asks Quint what to do, and Quint says that they'll stay out there until they find it again. Brody, in the funniest moment of the movie, suggests to Quint that they should radio in and get a bigger boat.
What do we do now? We win, right?
We've got one barrel on him, so we stay out here till we find him again.
Yeah, but we could radio in and get a bigger boat out here.
The same point he had made earlier, showing again how petrified he is of his situation. But the scene transitions as Brody is speaking, showing that his concern for their safety falls on deaf ears. The point is that Quint didn't listen to him. Again, although Brody was right. Even when Ellen Brody calls the Orca, Quint hurries her off.
Your husband's all right, Mrs. Brody. He's fishing. He just got a couple of stripers. We'll bring him in for dinner. We won't be long. We haven't seen anything yet. Orca out.
We see this one more time when Brody takes it upon himself to call for help, but Quint destroys the radio.
Excuse me, Chief.
Quint wants this to be a personal fight with the shark, regardless if Brody and Hooper are there with him. If he can defeat the shark, then, in his heart, he'll know that he's earned his right to survive the USS Indianapolis, rather than just randomly not being selected by the sharks who killed the other crewmen. Quint, deep down, does not feel he's earned his right to live. That's why he still hunts sharks. He's looking for the one shark that will give him a run for his money. He wants the competition. And if that means he must risk the lives of others, like Brody and Hooper, in the process, then so be it. Whatever the symbolic reason was for the USS Indianapolis sinking, within the context of Jaws, of course, Quint disregarded it. Quint is content with his mission to deliver the bomb. He even says this with a proud smile to Brody.
Anyway, we delivered the bomb.
Although he was scared to death, he made it out of the Pacific alive and unscathed and able to live a full life. Chance gave him that opportunity to start again, learn from his mistakes, and accept humility. However, Quint didn't move past that incident and instead dedicated his life to killing sharks at Amity Island as a way to endure his PTSD. Quint knows his time on Earth ends with the shark attack. That's why he says he'll never put on a life jacket again. Quint would rather face the jaws of a shark than to go on living in fear and misery the way he has.
I'll never put on a life jacket again.
Quint wants and welcomes the presence and the battle with this shark. He knew it was coming for him ever since he was saved all those years ago. All he did was postpone the inevitable, which is to die by a shark attack, which symbolically means to be held accountable for the delivering of the atomic bomb. He's been living a life of guilt since then. He wants his guilty conscience cleared forever, and the only way to accomplish that is his death from a shark attack. Jaws sees the usage of the atomic bomb against Japan as a form of military overindulgence. After the attack on Pearl Harbor by the Japanese, the United States was justified in its retaliation against the Axis forces, especially Japan. However, using atomic bombs against Japan, rather than using American airstrikes to attack Japanese military bases, like the Japanese had done to Pearl Harbor, is on another level of destruction and insult. The atomic bombs were developed as a race against the Nazis with the likelihood for the bombs to be used by the US against the Germans. But the battle with Germany had been over for quite some time. Germany surrendered in May 1945, 3 months before the atomic bombs were used against Japan in August. Therefore, some could say, the atomic bombs used against Japan was just a form of tyranny. Just as innocent lives were taken during the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the Great White Shark also took innocent lives at Amity, an eye for an eye. Ben Gardner's corpse, strangely, is even missing an eye, which is weird because how did a great white shark manage to remove a human body part so small? It can't, and therefore means something more on a subtextual level. The shark is symbolic of equal justice, and it holds Quint solely responsible for his involvement in the atomic bomb. Quint, Hooper, and Brody shoot it, harpoon it, and even attempt to drug it with poison, but nothing works, because the shark is a protected symbol and has only one goal: to kill Quint. Once the shark kills Quint, its work there is done. The crewman who got away has finally been served his comeuppance, and the people of Hiroshima have been avenged. Only now is the shark able to be killed.
Fire, you son of a...
If we never got Quint's monologue about the atomic bomb, the film never would have applied the symbolism of survivor's guilt to Quint. But what we got was a tragic backstory about a crewman sailor who delivered the atomic bomb and was eventually held accountable for it.